6 months from now, you will either be exactly where you are today, or you won't be. That's not a threat. That's just how time works. And the strange part is, most people already know which one it'll be. Not because they've given up, but because deep down, they can feel the pattern. The same year, again. The same January energy that fades by March. The same version of themselves, sitting in the same chair, thinking the same thoughts. And somewhere underneath all of that, a quiet question that doesn't go away. What if I actually tried? Not tried in the way you've tried before. Not the half start, where you wake up Monday with good intentions, and by Thursday you're back to old habits. Not that kind of try. Something different. Something serious. 6 months of actually showing up for yourself, and only yourself, and seeing what happens on the other side. I want to talk about that, because I think most people have never actually done it, and I think most people have no idea what's waiting for them if they did. There's this thing that happens when you've been living a certain way for a long time. You stop noticing it. The routine becomes invisible. You wake up, you do what you do, you go to bed, you repeat. And somewhere in there, there are little moments, just flickers, really, where you think, is this it? And then something distracts you, and the feeling disappears, and you move on. But those moments don't actually disappear. They just go quiet for a while. You know what I'm talking about. Maybe it was when someone you went to school with showed up in your feed doing something remarkable. And for just a second, before you liked the post, you felt something. Not quite jealousy, something more complicated. Something like, why them and not me? And then you clicked away and forgot about it. But you didn't forget. Not completely. Or maybe it's something smaller than that. Maybe it was a Tuesday afternoon, nothing dramatic, and you realized that another year had gone by and you still hadn't done the thing. Whatever the thing is for you, the business you were going to start, the body you were going to take care of, the skill you were going to develop, the version of your life you were going to build, still somewhere in the future, still theoretical. And here's what gets me. Here's what I keep coming back to. It's not that people don't want to change. It's not that they're lazy, or incapable, or unlucky. Most people I know are working really hard. They're exhausted, actually. They're running on 3 hours of real rest, managing everyone else's expectations, putting out fires, and just trying to make it to the weekend. That's not laziness. That's people doing their best in a life that never stops demanding things from them. But there's a difference between being busy and being productive. There's a difference between being tired and making progress. And most people, if they're honest, and I mean really honest, not the polished version they'd tell someone at a dinner party, most people know they've been confusing the two. You can be exhausted from a life that isn't going anywhere. Think about that for a second. You can work incredibly hard and still feel like you're standing still, because motion and direction are different things. And if you've been pouring everything you have into directions that don't actually matter to you, other people's emergencies, other people's visions, other people's timelines, then no amount of effort is going to get you where you want to go. That's not a judgment. That's just arithmetic. Now I want to talk about something that most motivational content skips over, because it's uncomfortable. And that's the part where we have to admit that some of the ways we're stuck are things we chose. Slowly, quietly, without realizing it, we chose comfort over growth. We chose familiar over uncertain. We chose the version of our life that felt manageable over the version that felt possible. And that's human. That's completely human. The brain is designed to protect you from discomfort. It treats change like a threat. It will dress up stagnation as stability just to keep you from trying something that might not work. It will remind you of every time you failed before, every time you embarrassed yourself, every time you started something and didn't finish it. And it will use all of that as evidence that you probably shouldn't bother. Your own mind will argue against your own progress. And the thing is, it's convincing, because it uses real memories, real pain, real history. It doesn't make up reasons. It pulls from your actual life. And so the hesitation feels rational. The delay feels reasonable. You'll start next month, after the holidays. when things settle down, when you feel ready. But readiness doesn't work that way. Readiness isn't a feeling you get before you start. Readiness is what happens after you've already started. You don't feel ready, and then you go. You go, and then you start to feel ready. Most people have that completely backwards, and it costs them years. I spent a long time waiting to feel ready, waiting to feel motivated enough, confident enough, prepared enough. And what I didn't understand then, what I genuinely couldn't see, was that I was waiting for a feeling that only comes from doing the thing I was waiting to feel ready for. It's circular, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The waiting is the problem. The waiting is the thing keeping you stuck. So let's talk about what actually happens when someone stops waiting. When someone makes a real decision, not an emotional declaration at 2 in the morning, not a Pinterest board vision of their future self, but a real, quiet, serious decision to work on themselves for 6 months and mean it. The first thing that happens, and nobody tells you this, is that it feels nothing like you imagined. There's no dramatic montage. There's no morning where you wake up and everything clicks. The first week is usually just awkward. You're trying to do things differently, and it feels forced, and you feel a little ridiculous, and you keep wondering if it's actually going to matter. That's normal. That's the beginning of every real change I've ever seen. It's unglamorous. It's a little lonely. It doesn't look impressive. But something else is happening underneath that you can't see yet. Every time you follow through on a commitment you made to yourself, even a small one, even a stupid one, you're doing something to the way you see yourself. You're sending your own brain a message. You're saying, I say things and I mean them. And at first that message feels weak, because you've broken promises to yourself before, and part of you doesn't believe it yet. But every day that you follow through, that signal gets a little stronger, and every day you don't, it gets a little weaker. This is what people miss when they talk about habits and discipline. They make it sound like a system, like a checklist. But it's not really a system. It's a relationship. It's the relationship you have with yourself. And that relationship, like any relationship, is built through consistent behavior over time. Not through grand gestures, through showing up when you said you would, through doing the thing when you don't feel like it, through choosing your future self over your comfortable present self, again and again, in small moments that no one is watching. You are training yourself to trust yourself. And I cannot tell you how much changes when that happens. There's something that shifts around the 2nd or 3rd month. Something you can't really explain to people who haven't experienced it. You start to carry yourself differently. Not in an arrogant way, not in a look-at-me way, in a quieter way. Like something internal has steadied. Like the constant low-level noise of, I should be doing better, starts to fade. Not because the standards got lower, but because you're actually meeting them. And that silence, that absence of self-criticism, is a kind of peace most people have never felt for more than a moment. When you're consistently failing your own standards, there's a constant low hum of shame. It doesn't always show up as shame. Sometimes it shows up as irritability, or distraction, or the need to numb out with something, or just a general sense of being slightly off. You might not even trace it back to where it's coming from, but it's there, and it's costing you energy. Real energy. Energy that could be going somewhere else. When you start to actually live in alignment with who you say you want to be, not perfectly, not all at once, but directionally, that energy comes back. And you start to wonder what you were even doing with all that self-sabotage. You wonder why you fought so hard to stay small. Let me tell you something about the people who actually make it. Not the people who talk about changing. Not the people who feel the feeling and ride it for a week and crash. The people who actually transform themselves over a period of months. They're not the most talented. They're usually not the most naturally gifted. They don't have better circumstances than you. Some of them started from places that would make your situation look privileged. What they have, the one thing they consistently have, is that they decided to stop negotiating with themselves. There's a version of you that shows up every single day trying to renegotiate the deal. You committed to waking up earlier, and then 6:30 comes, and the version of you that's warm and comfortable tries to renegotiate. You committed to not wasting your evening, and then 9 p.m. comes, and the tired version of you tries to renegotiate. You committed to eating differently, and then you're at a social event, and the polite, easygoing version of you tries to renegotiate. And what do? You negotiate. Because the arguments are reasonable. Because you're tired. Because this one time won't hurt. Because you deserve a break. And I'm not saying you never take a break. I'm not saying life is supposed to be a grinding, joyless march towards some future version of yourself. That's not what this is. But there's a difference between a real, intentional rest and the slow, daily habit of letting yourself off the hook because it's easier than following through. And you know which one you're doing. You always know. The hardest thing about working on yourself is that it requires a kind of honesty most people actively avoid. Not honesty with other people, honesty with yourself, about where you actually are, about what you're actually doing with your time, about whether the stories you tell yourself about your situation are accurate or convenient, about how much of where you are is circumstance and how much is choice. And that reckoning, sitting with the real answer to that question, is uncomfortable. It's supposed to be uncomfortable, because if it were comfortable, you would have done it already. The discomfort is where the growth starts, not after you get through it, right in the middle of it. There's a moment, I don't know exactly when it happens, because it's different for everyone, but there's a moment, somewhere in those 6 months, where you stop doing the work because you're supposed to, and start doing it because you want to, because it's become part of who you are, because missing a day doesn't feel like a relief anymore. It feels wrong. It feels like leaving something undone that matters to you. That's when you know something real has changed. And from the outside, people will start to notice. They always do. Not because you're showing off, but because there's a quality in people who are growing that's difficult to define and impossible to fake. They're more present, more settled, more interesting to talk to, because they're actually doing something with their lives that they care about, and that energy is real and it's contagious. You've met people like that. You know exactly who I'm describing. The ones who make you feel, just by being around them, that something more is possible for you too. You can be that person for someone else. You probably already know who needs to see that from you. But that can't happen until it happens for you first. You cannot pour from a container that's been running on empty. You can't inspire change in someone else while you're quietly abandoning yourself every day. It doesn't work that way. The most generous thing you can do for the people around you is actually become who you're capable of being. Not for the performance of it, for real. Now here's where I want to be careful, because this is where a lot of people go wrong. Working on yourself doesn't mean obsessively optimizing every hour. It doesn't mean downloading 3 productivity apps and color-coding your calendar and eliminating all joy in the name of discipline. That's not growth. That's anxiety wearing the costume of self-improvement, and it tends to collapse under its own pressure. Real growth is simpler than that, and more sustainable. It's deciding what actually matters to you, not what you think you should care about, not what looks good, not what your parents wanted, not what gets the most social approval, what actually matters to you, and then doing a little bit of that every single day. Just a little bit, just enough to keep the thread alive. Because the thread is what matters, not the perfect execution, not the impressive transformation photo, the unbroken thread, the proof, accumulated over weeks and months, that you keep coming back, that you're serious, that this isn't another phase. That's what changes the game. 6 months seems like a long time when you're standing at the beginning of it, but you know how long 6 months actually feels when you're living it. It feels like nothing. I promise you, you'll blink and it's summer. You'll blink again and the leaves are changing. Time doesn't slow down. It never slows down. The only question is what you're doing with it while it passes. And this is the thing I keep coming back to. This is the thing I want you to actually sit with. The 6 months are going to pass. That's not a question. That's not up for debate. The next 6 months will happen whether you do anything with them or not. Whether you make the changes or don't. Whether you have the conversation you've been avoiding. Whether you start the thing. Whether you get serious about your health. Whether you finally stop sleepwalking through your own life. The time passes either way. So the only real question is, where do you want to be standing when you get to the other side of it? Not where you hope to be. Not where you think you should be. Where do you actually want to be? Knowing now what it costs. Knowing what it asks of you. Knowing it won't be easy. Knowing there will be days that feel pointless and weeks where progress seems invisible. Where do you want to be? Because that version of you exists. I genuinely believe that. Not as some magical future fantasy, as a real, possible, reachable outcome of 6 months of honest effort. It's not that far away. It's 6 months away. That's it. And it's closer than the last 6 months you let pass without really trying. The saddest conversations I've ever had are with people who tell me about all the things they were going to do. 5 years ago, 10 years ago. They had the same ideas, the same plans, the same potential, and somewhere along the way, they made peace with not doing them. They call it being realistic now. They say they're content, and maybe some of them are. But the ones who aren't, the ones who still carry it, you can see it in their face when they talk about it. There's something there, a quiet grief for the person they never let themselves become. I don't want that for you. And honestly, I don't think you want that for yourself. If you did, you wouldn't still be listening. So here it is, stripped down to the simplest possible version. Pick one thing, just one thing that, if you actually did it consistently for 6 months, would meaningfully change your life. Your health, your finances, a skill, a relationship, a creative project, a bad habit you've been carrying for years. Pick the one that matters most, the one that comes up in those quiet moments when you're honest with yourself. And then don't talk about it. Don't announce it. Don't build an elaborate system around it. Just start. Today, not tomorrow. Not after you feel ready. Just start where you are, with what you have, even if it feels embarrassingly small. And then come back tomorrow, and the day after that. And every time the negotiating voice shows up, every time a very good reason to stop or pause or delay appears, just notice it and keep going anyway. That's it. That's the whole thing. It sounds too simple to be the answer. I know, but most real answers are. The complexity is what we add to avoid doing the simple thing. 6 months from now, the person reading this who actually did it will look back at this moment and understand something they couldn't before. They'll understand why people who've been through real change talk about it the way they do, not with arrogance, but with this kind of quiet amazement. Because you will not fully understand what's on the other side of consistent self-work until you're standing there, and then you'll wonder why it took you so long to start. And the one thing you'll wish, the one small regret, is that you didn't begin 6 months earlier. So begin now.